December 7th, 1941, a date which will forever live in infamy, etched into the annals of history as a pivotal moment that irrevocably altered the course of global events. On that fateful morning, Japan's devastating surprise attack on the U.S. naval base at Perl Harbor, located in Hawaii, directly propelled the United States into the maelstrom of the Second World War, ending its period of neutrality. But let us pause and consider a profound hypothetical. What if that day, December 7th, 1941, never arrived as it did? What if Japan had opted for an entirely different strategy, one characterized by patience, diplomatic negotiation, or even a conscious act of military restraint? How profoundly would that singular, alternative decision have reshaped the entire 20th century, influencing political landscapes, technological advancements, and societal structures, and by extension, how might it have fundamentally altered our world as we experience it today? What if Japan never attacked Pearl Harbor? This question opens a fascinating exploration into an alternate historical reality where one different choice could have had monumental ripple effects across the globe. By late 1941, the Empire of Japan found itself at a critical crossroads, facing immense strategic and economic pressures. Its vast empire already extended significantly across East Asia, encompassing territories such as Korea, Taiwan, and substantial portions of mainland China. However, Japan's protracted and costly war in China had devolved into a debilitating quagmire, draining resources and manpower. In response to Japan's aggressive expansion, the United States, Great Britain, and the Netherlands had collectively imposed severe economic sanctions, with the most crippling measure being a comprehensive oil embargo. Without a steady and reliable supply of oil, the Imperial Japanese Navy, a crucial component of its military power, was projected to become completely immobilized within a mere matter of months. Tokyo's military and political leaders were thus confronted with an agonizing and desperate choice: either capitulate to Western demands and withdraw from China, or forcibly seize the oil-rich colonies of Southeast Asia to secure vital resources by military means. Historically, Japan ultimately chose the third and most aggressive option, deciding to expand its military operations southward. However, Japanese strategists harbored deep-seated fears that any direct attack on the American-held Philippines and British Malaya would inevitably and automatically provoke a full-scale military response from the United States. Therefore, to gain crucial time and neutralize the American Pacific Fleet, they executed a preemptive strike at Pearl Harbor. But what if, in an alternate reality, they had chosen not to launch that attack, fundamentally altering the trajectory of the war? Imagine a scenario where Japan's influential high command, particularly figures like Admiral Isoroku Yamamoto, successfully persuades Emperor Hirohito and the rest of the leadership to avoid a direct military confrontation with the United States, at least for the immediate future, prioritizing other strategic objectives. Instead of the devastating aerial assault on Pearl Harbor, Japan initiates a more focused and limited campaign southward. This involves occupying British Malaya and the Dutch East Indies with the primary objective of seizing their vital oil supplies, while meticulously and deliberately avoiding any direct engagement with American territories such as the Philippines or Guam. While Washington would undoubtedly express profound outrage and condemnation over Japan's actions, it might not immediately escalate to a full declaration of war. The United States could respond by tightening existing sanctions even further, significantly expanding its aid to China and reinforcing its Pacific defenses, yet still hesitate to formally declare war without a direct attack on its own sovereign territory or forces. In this compelling alternate timeline, America would likely maintain its role as a reluctant arsenal of democracy, primarily channeling its resources and attention towards the escalating conflict in Europe, viewing it as the more immediate and pressing threat to global stability. Without the catalyst of Pearl Harbor, the United States would significantly delay its full-scale entry into World War II, a delay that could potentially span a year or even extend indefinitely, profoundly altering the global balance of power and the duration of the conflict. Consequently, Great Britain would continue its solitary struggle against Nazi Germany in the West, enduring immense pressure and hardship, while the Soviet Union would bear the brutal brunt of the Eastern Front, bleeding profusely against the relentless German war machine. Although crucial Lend-Lease shipments from the US would still flow to Allied nations, providing essential material support, no American soldiers would be deployed to fight in North Africa or participate in the D-Day landings in Normandy, at least not at the historical junctures, leaving the European theater to be fought primarily by other Allied forces. Adolf Hitler, unprovoked by an American declaration of war and facing no immediate threat from the Western Hemisphere, might then concentrate the entirety of his formidable military might and strategic focus on achieving a decisive victory against the Soviet Union. With the full, undivided attention of the Wehrmacht directed solely towards the Eastern Front, German forces could potentially push far deeper into Russian territory, perhaps even succeeding in capturing the strategically vital city of Moscow by as early as 1942, a feat they historically failed to achieve. The war in Europe would thus transform into an even more brutal and protracted duel primarily between two totalitarian empires, Nazi Germany and the Soviet Union, locked in a titanic struggle for ideological and territorial supremacy. While the United States remains a powerful, yet uncommitted, superpower observing from the sidelines. In this alternate timeline, Japan gains crucial months, perhaps even years, to consolidate its burgeoning empire across Southeast Asia. With strategic control of the resource-rich Dutch East Indies, now Indonesia and Malaya, known today as Malaysia, Japan secures the vital oil supplies it desperately needed for its war machine.
The United States and Great Britain would undoubtedly condemn these aggressive moves, but neither nation could realistically afford to open another major warfront while already deeply embroiled in the European conflict.
Across Asia, this scenario could dramatically shift perceptions. Nationalist figures like Sukarno in Indonesia or Subhas Chandra Bose in India might view Japan not as an aggressor, but as a liberator from Western colonial rule. The concept of the Greater East Asia Co-Prosperity Sphere, though fundamentally imperialist, could gain significant political traction as anti-colonial sentiment spread rapidly throughout the region. Yet, beneath this veneer of liberation, Japan's empire would remain brutal, built upon widespread exploitation and forced labor, a harsh reality for millions. Eventually, this overreach and the inevitable rise of internal rebellion would challenge Japan's control from within, leading to widespread resistance movements. Even without the direct attack on Pearl Harbor, the underlying tensions between Tokyo and Washington were too profound to simply disappear. The United States would continue its robust rearmament efforts, steadily expanding its naval fleet and fortifying its Pacific defenses. Public opinion in America, initially weary from the Great Depression, would slowly but surely shift as reports of Japanese atrocities in China and other parts of Asia became undeniable. By 1943 or 1944, a minor skirmish, perhaps in the contested waters of the South China Sea, or even a mistaken attack on an American vessel, could still ignite the long-anticipated war. However, in this altered scenario, America would enter the conflict from a position of overwhelming strength, fully mobilized, strategically prepared, and with a unified national resolve. A delayed U.S. entry into the war would profoundly transform the global balance of power, creating a cascade of unforeseen consequences. Without the immediate urgency of the Pacific War, the Manhattan Project, America's effort to develop the atomic bomb might not have received the same accelerated funding and priority. Consequently, the atomic bomb could have emerged years later, potentially after Germany had already achieved victory in the Eastern Front, fundamentally reshaping the European conflict. Without the crucial D-Day invasion, the Soviet Union could have advanced much deeper into Europe, spreading communism far beyond its historical reach, potentially into France or even the Middle East. The Cold War, as we know it, might not have been a standoff between two superpowers, but rather a complex struggle between a fascist Europe and an imperial Asia. America would then be forced to make an agonizing decision when, or even whether, to intervene in this drastically altered global landscape. By avoiding Pearl Harbor, Japan might have bought itself precious time, but it would not have secured lasting peace. Its vast empire would eventually collapse under the immense weight of economic strain and the moral bankruptcy of its brutal policies. Meanwhile, America's unparalleled industrial power would still ultimately dominate the post-war world, albeit a very different one. The timing and very shape of that world, the formation of NATO, the establishment of the United Nations, and the dawn of the nuclear age, might have emerged decades later, or perhaps not at all. In history, as in life, what actually happened often matters less than the profound implications of what almost did. Today, Japan and the United States stand as close allies, partners in peace across the Pacific, a region once tragically divided by war. Perhaps that is the greatest irony of all. Out of the ashes of the most devastating conflict in human history, two former enemies built one of the strongest friendships the modern world has ever seen. This enduring alliance stands as a testament to reconciliation and shared values. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this journey through alternate history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more stories that make us see the world a little differently.